Hi friends, today let's start with the part 2 interview question and answers for Java, Spring Boot and microservices. Hope the video part 1 you people get clear on some of the questions, and let's move with the second part today. So um, the first question here is related to Java, difference between equals and equals method and hash code. The equals and the hash code are the two important methods provided by the object class for comparing objects. So in the previous video, if you people remember, this equals and hash code we got on hash map question, right? So can we use a custom key in the hash map in that question? So what is actually equals method and hash code method in Java? These are the important methods in the object class for the actually what we do with these objects for comparing objects. So since the object class is a parent class for all the Java objects, hence all Java objects inherit the default implementation of these two methods. So equals what it does, so we'll be having like this equals of object method is used to judge whether two objects are same. If they are same, it returns true, otherwise it returns false. So what it does actually, equals method, it will actually compare, it will like finalize whether the two objects we have, whatever objects we are having, if we need to compare that one, then we'll use this method, and if it is same it will return true, otherwise it will return false. By default two objects will be same only if stored in the same memory location. So by this also we can say if those objects, whichever objects we are comparing, are stored in the same memory location, then also those two objects will be same by default. So how the syntax it will be, so public boolean equals of objects. So here we can see the return type is boolean, means whether so it will return true or false. And the next is the hash code. Hash code method actually returns an int number, and hash code is an integer value associated with every object in Java, facilitating the hashing in hash table. So it actually returns an integer value for every object. To get this hash code value, so how we will get, so whenever we want to check any object's hash code, so we can use this hash code method in Java to get, in order to get the hash code value for that particular object. Since this method is defined in the object class, hence it is inherited by user defined classes also. The hashcode method returns the same hash value when called on two objects which are equal according to the equals method, and if the objects are unequal, it usually returns different hash value. So what it is saying, so if the objects, whatever objects we are checking, right, so if it is unequal means it will return the different hash code values. So here we can see the syntax public int hash code, so it returns the integer value. If for the two objects we are getting two different hash values, then those objects are unequal, and if it is having the same hash value, then it will be equal. So moving to next question. Difference between equals method in object class and string class. So we have seen equals method and hash code in the object class. So the here some tricky question. Equals method we have in the object class, the default method, and also in the string class. So what actually the difference, and what actually they does in two different classes. So equals method in object class, the equals method of the object class doesn't know how to compare the strings. It only knows how to compare objects. So whatever like objects we know, right, it can be of any type, whether it is a employee or user or string or some integer, something like we don't know the specific data type of it. Those are called as the objects, right? So This equal method in the object class, it doesn't know actually exactly like how to compare the strings. It actually does like comparing the references of the objects, and it accepts an object and compares it with the current object. If the references of these two objects are equal, then it will return true, otherwise this method will be returning false. And equals in string class, what it is doing for comparing strings, a class will override the equals method and comparing strings in it. So whenever we want to check two strings, then we have to go for this equals method in the string class, and we have to override it. What it actually does, it will equals method will actually compare the values of the two strings, and it will also return true only if the character sequences in both the string objects are exactly same. So whatever, like for example, string s1 and s2 is there, if you want to compare, then we will use the equals method in the string class. And when we don't know what it is exactly, the object, so we'll go for the equals method in the object class. So this is also one of the important interview question. Moving to the next question, it is related to Spring Boot. What is the default server of the Spring Boot and what is its port number? So Spring Boot actually providing us the default server, which is like it includes an embedded server. Embedded server is embedded as a part of deployable application. The advantage of embedded server is we do not require pre-installed server in the environment. So every time, like whenever we are deploying on dev QA, etc., so we no need to again go to installing and keeping that server configuration, everything, etc. So Spring Boot itself giving us the embedded server here, that is the Tomcat server. And Spring Boot also supports another two embedded servers, those are Jetty server and Undertow server. And what is its port number? Default port number of the Tomcat server is 8080. So the mostly like basic question we can say for the Spring Boot embedded server is a Tomcat. Another two embedded servers also it is providing, that is the Jetty server and Undertow server. And the default port number of the Tomcat server is 8080. And going to the next question, and can we change the default server of the Spring Boot? If yes, then how? So can we change, like Spring Boot is providing, in the last question we have seen it, Spring Boot is providing the default server Tomcat and default port also 8080. So can we change that? Yes, we can obviously change that default embedded server Tomcat. We can do it by excluding the Tomcat server by using the exclusion tag in the dependency in the POM file as below. So where like whatever information we need to give, like server or whatever related dependencies we have to give in the dependency file, that is all the dependencies will be present in the POM file of the Spring Boot application. So like this it will be in the starter web dependency of the Spring Boot will be having this starter Tomcat. So what we are doing here, in the exclusions we have to declare the exclusions tag. Inside that exclusion we have to declare, under that we have to exclude this specific Tomcat dependency. If we do not want to use the default embedded server Tomcat, and we are thinking to use any other server like Jetty or Undertow, like whichever you want according to your application. So accordingly we can change that by excluding like this in the POM file. Hope this understands. Going to the next question, Can we change default server port in Spring Boot? If yes, then how? So we have seen whether like we can exclude the default server in the Spring Boot, and that is yes, we can change. And can we change the server port number also? Default the Tomcat server it is giving 8080, right? So what we have to do if we want to change the server port number? So yes, obviously we can change the Spring Boot default embedded server Tomcat port number. We can do it in the properties or YAML file in the application. So these files like in your application, how you are like preparing the hierarchy. You can have whether properties files or YAML files in your application. So if you are using the application dot properties file in your application, then server dot port equal to like this, whatever port number, just I am like giving here 8081. So whatever port number you want to give, you can mention. If you are using the YAML file, that is YAML file, YML file basically we will be having the hierarchy structure like this. In the properties files it will be like dot. Server dot, if you are having any other dependency like Spring dot, like it will be we have to declare by using the dot. Here in the hierarchy it will be there in the YML file. So server and under that port colon whichever port number you are referring, then you can give it here. Both files are loaded automatically by Spring Boot if placed in the source slash main slash resources directory of the Maven application. So we will be declaring the properties or YAML files in this directory, right? So whatever you are declaring according to your application, so if you are declaring in this directory, then it will be automatically, those files will be automatically loaded. So like why we have to change this port number? So like this also question we can raise, right? So for the different environments, if you want to deploy in different ports, for example dev we are using 8080, and QA we want to have another port number. So in such cases this will be important. So this is also one of the important questions in the Spring Boot related embedded server question. So the next question: difference between monolithic application and microservices. So these days like highly building all the applications on the microservices, all the implementations are going for the microservices architecture, right? So why we are going, what is the like basic difference between, already we had, right, monolithic application and what is microservices architecture? So if we see, monolithic architecture is like it is built as one large system and is usually one code base. So it will be like large application or large system we can say, and it will be only having one code base, and it is not easy to scale based on the demand. So whatever demand, like currently we will be getting many updates, many technologies, everything, right? So based on the demand, this monolithic application cannot scale, and like based on the demand we cannot do in such application. It has shared database. Large code base makes IDE slow and build time gets increased. So even for a single change, we want to build the whole application in the monolithic architecture, and it is extremely difficult to change technology or language or framework because everything is tightly coupled and depend on each other. So as I said, it is a only one system and only one code base, right? So whichever technology coming in the market, or whichever newly like if you want to integrate any language changes, or if you want to use any other framework which is client needs, so all these things we cannot do in the monolithic application. So because it is only one code base, if you are changing one thing, then every other application code base, everything we need to change, so it takes lots of time. And it will be having only one database, so all this related to the monolithic application or monolithic architecture. So if we see the microservices architecture, it is built as small independent module based on business functionality. So whatever functionality, whatever actual requirement is there for the client, so we can build like small applications, like small modules based on the functionality. It is easy to scale based on the demand. Each project and module has their own database. So here it is shared database for everything, like for the large that system we have only one database, and here for each module or each project we will be having its own separate like database. Each project is independent and small in size, so overall build and development time gets decreased. Easy to change technology or framework because every module and project is independent. So if we see here monolithic architecture, we have the UI user interface, business logic, data access layer, and only one database. It is only one system. So in the microservice architecture, we have UI, microservices, and all will be the independent separate ones, and for each one we'll be having the separate databases. So if you are in the future the client needs only in this microservices some additional enhancement need to do, so we can go to that microservices micro that alone independent microservices and do your changes, and the db also related things will get changed, and we can build and deploy easily. Then remaining all other microservices will be stable. So in such way this microservices architecture becoming famous day by day. So hope this understands. Going to the next question. Difference between list and set. This is a Java question. Both interfaces extend the collection interface. So list and a set actually comes under the collection interface. And if we see the list is an indexed sequence, and this is not an indexed sequence. Set is not an indexed sequence. So index means we know, right? So it is referring to the indexed sequence. So if I say like for element we are having here one two and three. For the index we have to say this is the index position for us. We are having index will always count from 0, and this is the index value 1. So list is like actually referring to the indexed sequence, and this list allows duplicate elements, and set does not allow any duplicate elements. Elements by their position can be accessed. So here by their position, whichever position we are giving right according to the index, then we'll get the value according to that. Position access to elements is not allowed in the set. Multiple null values can be stored here, any number of. So position it will be there, here any null values also can be stored. Null element can store only once, so it is not indexed sequence, right? So it is allowing only once. And list implementations are array list, linked list, vector, stack. Set implementations are hash set, linked hash set. So how actually we are declaring the list over here. So here the list, I said right, implementations or array list. Just taken here the new array list. So here dot is missing. List dot add here. We are adding some of the elements to the list. We are declaring this list object and adding some of the elements, and the set declaration the integer type equal to set equal to new hash set. Then we are adding some of the elements. Just we are printing the elements, whatever elements we are giving here, right, in the declaration, just we are printing it. And what will be the output? The list 5 6 whatever elements we are giving here, just it is printing. And as I said, it is allowing the duplicates. See here, 5 is repeating 2 times, right? So it is allowing the duplicates, list is allowing the duplicates. And 3 4 5 6, the same elements if I give in the set, it will not actually allow the duplicate elements. So this is also the important questions in the collection interface in Java. Difference between list and set. And also one more question related to this is, set is not allowing duplicate elements, right? So how it is working, how the internally it is working to avoid the duplicate elements, this is also one of the question related to the set. Moving to the next question. What are the methods of object class in Java? So this is a important question. For object class, we know, right? It is actually the parent class of all the classes in Java by default. In other words, it is the topmost class of Java. So we should know about this. If you want to refer any object whose type you don't know, then the object class is beneficial. As I said before, when we discussed about equals method and hash code method in the object class. So whenever we don't know exact what is a return type, what is a data type, then we can go for this object class. And it is a parent class of all the classes in Java by default. We need not to declare it, but it is by default the parent class. Here we don't know what object will be written from this method. So how we will declare object, object equal to get object, how we'll get the object. So what are the methods? We have many methods inside this object class in Java. So we are having two string method, hash code method, equals method, finalize, get class, clone, wait, notify, notify all. So every method does like different things. So we have already discussed hash code method and equals method. And please let me know in the comment section if I have to cover the remaining methods also, what they are exactly doing. So moving to the next question related to Spring Boot. What is Spring Boot Actuator? So in the Spring Boot, we are having the Actuator, which is a sub project of the Spring Boot overall framework. It has a number of additional features that help us to monitor and manage the Spring Boot application. Why we go for the Actuator? When we want to add on some features to the Spring Boot application in order to monitor or manage the specific Spring Boot application, then we will be going to use the Spring Boot Actuator. It actually contains the Actuator endpoint. So by default itself, it is giving some of the endpoints also. So we can use the HTTP and JMX endpoints to manage and monitor the Spring Boot application. We should use the Spring Boot Actuator when we want to get production ready features in an application. So whenever like in an application, if you want to make sure about that specific like application, whether it is running up or down, its health, everything status in the like after deploying to the production, then we can have this actuator dependency and its features. So it is providing three main features which are endpoints, metrics, audit. We can enable the actuator by injecting the dependency. And whatever like additional feature or additional thing whatever you want to do in the Spring Boot application, first we need to remember and we need to do the main important thing is the declaring or including that dependency in our POM file. So here group ID, and here we are taking from the Spring framework, right? Dot boot, and this is a Spring Boot application, and it's artifact ID, which is a Spring Boot starter actuator. Version I have just given the placeholder according to your application. You can have your version can be declared here. Like this, we need to add the dependency in our POM file of the Spring Boot application. Then we can have this actuator. And on this, many questions will like are actually there, and also endpoints like we can do a demo also. Please let me know if I want to cover these things also in the next video. So moving to the next question. Later to Java, what is hashing in Java? Hashing is a technique that converts an object into a unique integer value. So this is also like how hashing is done, hash map is working, etc., etc. So this is also one of the important question by the interviewer. Hashing is actually a technique. What it actually does, it converts whatever like object we are giving, right? It will convert that object into the unique integer value. This value, whatever it is converting, right, this integer value helps in indexing and faster searches. So this unique integer is also known as the hash code. So whichever value it is converting, right, that integer number is known as a hash code. And why it is converting? So for each value, it will be like useful in indexing. By indexing, we can easily search that one, so the searching also will be faster. The hashing technique uses the hash function, which invokes the hash code method to generate a number. So how it is generating a number? We said it actually converting object into the integer value, right? So this is doing by the hash code method. So to invoke this method, what it is doing, this hashing technique actually using the hash function. This hash function only invoking this hash code method, which is giving us a integer value to generate that unique integer value. So what is hash function? Hash function can be defined as function that returns an integer value corresponding to that object, whatever we said, right? So that object is converting to the integer value by this hash function always returns the same integer value for the same object. So if the object 1 is there, uh, um, so object A is there, so we are generating one integer value for that using the hash function. So if we are giving the same object again the same time, again the second time, then also the same in value it will return. So hash function will always return the same integer value for the same object. The integer value written by the hash function is called the hash value. So whatever value it is returning, right, so this is called the hash value. So hashing is actually a technique, mainly we can say it is converting every object into the unique integer value. So if the interviewer keenly wants to know internal that depth mechanism, then we have to explain the whole mechanism, how it is actually working internally. So yeah, so this is a, set of part 2 questions I have covered today, and thank you so much. Happy learning, and please subscribe. Thank you.